And I decided that we hadn't looked at carefully enough at the shallow stuff. And I finally got the producing department to drill a well, what we thought was up dip from one of these wells, one of the first wells that had about 10 feet of gas on the water. And they were dragging their feet because of the expense, and they thought it was, you know, foolish. But they agreed to drill it, but they drilled it to 4,000 feet, which is where they had to set the surface casing. If we didn't have something at 4,000 feet, that was it. So we drilled. We got to 4,000 feet, ran logs. We had about 150 feet of gas. We were high. And so they ran casing, and we drilled ahead. By the time we got to 5,500 feet, I think it was, we had 500 some feet of gas sand. Well, you know, that sort of perked things up. And then we started drilling. They started developing that. We drilled a well back to the north, just about where I wanted to drill this exploratory well. And down deeper, down at 8,800 feet, I think it was, we had about 100-foot oil sand, which was South Louisiana. If you get a massive 100-foot oil sand, you really got something. You know. Well, there we had open acreage, and of course we were drilling this stuff just tight as in terms of information.
Okay.
Our geologists who got there, they'd run the logs. The geologist would develop the film rather than Schlumberger band and bring the film back, and so on.
Remember Shell saying they did the same thing with South Pass 27? Exactly.
I'm sure they did.
Exactly
yeah.
the same thing.
South
So
Pass,
no, you were your position was area geologist.
I was an area geologist.
So were you going out and doing that?
I had done it on main on that well on the south end, the one I drilled off the NOLA. I'd done that, but I had one of our other geologists. Okay. But by that time, I was not the area geologist. Larry Funkhauser had been transferred to Texas, and I was the division superintendent.
Right. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Well, we drilled this well up to the north, offsetting that open acreage, and I had this 100-foot oil sand, and we knew we really had something big. So we stepped west, right along the lease line, and drilled a well right in the corner of our lease block, and we still had the 100-foot oil sand and some other shallower sands. And then we drilled a couple more wells going down the west side of the block, and they all had that.
This was 41, right?
Yeah, block 41, 42.
Yeah.
Actually, those wells are in block 40, the east half of 42.
Okay.
And by then, we knew we had something big, and to get the acreage put up, we had to prove drainage. And at that time, if you wanted to, and I suppose still, you didn't have to turn the log over to the state, but if you perforated anything for production, then you had to send in a section of log showing the sand, where the perforations were, that sort of stuff. So we looked around all up and down that log and found a little thin gas sand up shallow. And we perforated that, produced some gas, and then told them we was going to, establishing drainage. And we were sort of panicked because after that thing produced gas for about 48 hours, it started to make oil. And gas in those days was, nobody wanted it. And in fact, Main Pass sort of had a reputation as being gassy, and people weren't very interested in it. Well, about that time, the exact timing is off a little bit, but this was before the 62 sale. And it,
So you got the acreage put up in, I think, was it a drainage sale in 59 and?
no, that's why I'm saying the
Oh,
timing is a little
yeah.
confused here, because we had the information and when the 62 sale came up, but we hadn't drilled the offsetting. We hadn't been able to get the offsetting acreage put up for bid.
Okay.
But with the information we had, we nominated all the acreage in Main Pass, basically, to the east and north.
The 62 was the big sale where just about everything that was nominated was actually put up for lease, right?
Yeah. That, at that time, that acreage came up for lease. We had nominated all the stuff to the east, but there were 4 blocks out in deep water, that is 200 and some feet of water. 4 leases, 4 blocks put up. And we hadn't put them up. We had no seismic out there because we just had a rule at the time. We shut off all seismic lines at 100-foot water depth because nothing out any deeper than that could be of any interest. So
100 feet.
100 feet, all the seismic lines stopped at 100 feet. But we had, I don't remember where we got it, but we had a gravity survey from a bottom type meter that would sit on the bottom and take gravity measurements. And it showed on this 4-block thing, it showed a little tight positive anomaly, which is the sort of thing that's associated with cap rock on a salt dome. And so these nominations came in, and I sent them to the area geologist. And I went back to see him a couple days later and said, what are you recommending we do about that? I said, I'm not going to recommend anything. The company would never bid on anything in 200 feet of water.
This was the area geologist.
This was the area geologist. Well, eventually we gave him another assignment. But I said, oh, I don't think so. Get the division geophysicist up here. Let's talk about it. So anyway, we went out and shot 2 lines, north-south line and east-west line, across that little gravity anomaly. And there was a Pearson salt dome. So we bid on it. And I think we bid a total of a little over $2 million on the 4 leases, on the 4 blocks. You know, something like $400,000 or $500,000 per block. And Shell was the competition. Of course, they had obviously nominated it. But we outbid them 10–15% on every lease, just by sheer luck, I guess. But then we had the leases, but we didn't have anything to drill them with.
Before you tell me that, how did you put the numbers on those blocks at that time? I mean, was
You mean
it
the bid?
Yeah, was it becoming, you know, were you using
Well, we didn't.
more sophisticated economic analysis? You know.
Well, we did a basically economic analysis, but we just guessed it, pure guess at how we would develop it, really, because we had built platforms for 50 feet of water, but that was it.
Yeah.
They kind of considered Main Pass 41 as pretty deep in 50 so feet of water. But we looked at it. We drew a sort of an analogy with the Venice salt dome, which is onshore, not very far away. I think Tidewater had that dome, and it had we felt that it had reserves of about 80 million barrels, which is sort of what we guessed this one might be. And it turned out it was bigger than that, but that's how we put together some kind of economics and made a bid.
Okay.
And that really got us going into deep water.